just a joke, bro. Welcome to the But I Don't Know podcast, the podcast where we push the wrong short keys on our hotkeys on our keyboard and all that kind of stuff.
That is our identity, yes.
I mean, the last couple of episodes, I've been missing that cue at the end of the intro every single time. I don't know why. It's so doof. But anyway, here we are. This podcast is called But I Don't Know. And the whole reason why we called it But I Don't Know is because, well, we don't know much. We're a little bit stupid.
Him more than me.
My name is John, and JP.
This is me.
I'm JP. And if you don't know us, and if you're a little bit confused as to what's going on, please go listen to our first 3 episodes. Hopefully, they're a little bit less awkward than that interaction that just happened.
He doesn't miss the short keys in those episodes.
Yeah. But at least JP introduces himself on time. So that's pretty good.
That's funny.
So we're going to be talking about jokes.
You're joking. That's such a boomer joke, and I apologize to everyone listening.
That was pretty boomer. But before we get to it, we want to remind you that we have a website, www.dunocast.co.za. That's www.dunocast.co.za. And it's particularly important as of last week because on that website, there is now a page called merch. And JP, if you're watching on YouTube, is currently showing you his merch t-shirt that he's wearing, and I'm wearing mine as well.
Look at it.
It's really great. Like I'm so happy with the way it looks, you know.
I can't speak. Yeah. I'm so happy too.
I think it turned out really awesome. So if you go to that website address that I gave just now, /merch, or on the homepage, there's a big button there that says merch. You click there and read through the information, see how you can order one. I do want to mention that the shirt sizes are a little bit bigger than usual. So JP and I both ordered the sizes that we usually order.
We've got nightgowns.
And they're a little bit large. Like, it looks fine when you're wearing it.
It's not that
when
bad.
It really makes an impact is if you put your arms up, for instance. It's a very wide shirt, I think.
Mine is black, so you can't really see it.
I think that's the thing. It's like very wide. But it's comfortable. It fits well. It's not. The print is a bit bigger than we anticipated, which is also not a bad deal. Thank you, OTC Shop.
And the print's really
Shout
good.
Out. It's really nice.
Feel that.
Wow. It's really nice. So go check it out. We'd really appreciate it if you did that. Last thing I want to mention, it's 225 South African rands for one t-shirt, excluding shipping. And the shipping is 100 Rand per package. If you order multiple shirts, you save money. That's all I'm saying.
Mathematically, that checks out.
Anyways, thank you guys for your support until now. Let's jump right into it. Talking about support, Chris Rock was hosting the Oscars.
What is that segue? Talk about support.
I'm getting to the segue.
Okay,
there's a clear segue.
Okay, go for it.
He was hosting the Oscars, in which people win awards, and then other people show them support. Come on. That was a good segue.
Better segue would have been saying that some people get nominated for supporting roles.
I mean, anyway, so Chris Rock, I'm sure you've all heard about it. I'm sure you're all tired of hearing about it, and it's pretty much old news by now. But he was hosting the Oscars, and Will Smith was a nominee. Actually, he got nominated and won.
I think he won
He won. But somewhere in this whole process, pretty much, I think right at the beginning of the evening, just about, Chris Rock was making some jokes and made a joke about Will Smith's wife, and Will Smith decided to give Chris Rock
a high five to the face.
An intimate meeting with the palm of his hand.
An entanglement between his hand and Chris Rock's face.
Yes, exactly.
We've got the best jokes.
So we are going to talk about that briefly, but it's going to lead us into an actual important conversation. So if you feel like you're tired of the Will Smith debacle, then just hang in there for a couple of minutes. We're going to get to some juicy stuff just now. But for now, let's talk about Chris Rock and Will Smith. Like, how was that, bro? Where were you when you first heard about Will Smith and Chris Rock having an entanglement on stage?
I woke up and I went on the internet and then I saw this meme of Will Smith and I thought, well, my first reaction was, I didn't know the Oscars were still a thing, to be honest.
Shots.
But, okay. And I saw this meme and I thought, okay, this is probably like from a stunt that happened because they do that all the time. You know, people like play. It looks like, Will Smith is smiling. It looks like Chris Rock is smiling.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, this is interesting. And then I saw the video and I was like, oh no.
It's not a joke, bro.
Oh no, not the Fresh Prince of Ballet. No.
So yeah, Chris Rock was like, it's just a joke, bro.
Yeah,
and Will Smith was like, it's not just a joke, bro.
Exactly.
And I'll make sure your face knows it. So I went to work the fateful day of the Chris Rock and Will Smith entanglement. And when
Are we calling it that? Okay.
And I got home and my wife, shout out to my wife, she was like, I have to show you something. And then she showed me the video. Like that was like my first encounter was the video. And I was like, wow, things got hot real quick, Oh, damn. So it was interesting, but I must say, obviously, there's a whole bunch of opinions out there in the world about like, oh, it was staged, it wasn't staged, blah, 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 blah. And I think there's not much for us to say about that. Like, as Christians, that should absolutely not be much of an issue for us. In fact, until they come out and say it was staged, for sure, which I think at this point it's pretty obvious that it isn't.
Yeah.
But until such time as they come out and say, "Hey, it was staged. It was just a joke, bro."
It's just a joke, bro.
We need to give the benefit of the doubt. Now, that's where things get a little bit interesting here in this conversation. We're about to sort of start jumping into some juicy stuff because acting. Like when we see that happen on that stage, we need to give Will Smith, the person Will Smith, and the person Chris Rock the benefit of the doubt. As Christians, we need to love them. Love people, hate sin. Check out our merch.
Buy the merch.
We need to love them and give them somewhat the benefit of the doubt in the circumstance, but we know that both of them are actors as a profession at a massive conference thing for actors. And that
I can't believe you just said the Golden Globes. It's the annual actors conference.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I don't know what else do you call it? A do.
It's an award show.
Yeah, but I mean, like,
it's a show where they
like
pat themselves on the back,
on
the back, and they say, "Good job,
me.
You lied sufficiently."
But that's the point here. Is like, how do we ever know that what's happening is real or not? And as Christians, we need to give them the benefit of the doubt. If that situation was real, we should have compassion, give Will Smith and Chris Rock the benefit of the doubt here. Let's first talk Will Smith, because I'll get to Chris Rock in a moment. But Will Smith potentially had a really good reason to react that way. We don't know what happened in his day leading up to there, what's been going on in his marriage. I mean, we know a little bit because
they are pretty public.
The interview that happened not so long ago. But the point is, like, we don't know his emotional state at this exact moment of time or that exact moment of time. And we need to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, sure.
But what if he was acting?
What if he was acting? Sorry, I lost my words there. Yeah. No, I've seen a lot of, because I've looked at a lot of different opinions on the matter, and I would say this, that I've seen this from more than one person saying that, well, he's obviously having a mental breakdown. He's obviously,
It's obvious.
but I'm
Apparently.
like, how can you say that?
Yeah.
You know, you've never spoken to him.
Yeah, sure.
You know, by your own admission, but
He's not your friend.
he's not your friend. It's not my friend
He's
either.
not your friend, my
He
friend.
doesn't get back to me on the DMs. Don't know why. Crypt. But anyway, but
on,
yeah,
William.
I've seen a lot of assumptions people make about this whole situation.
For sure.
And they're like, well, I know exactly what's going on
Yeah.
in the marriage of Will Smith and Jada.
Yeah, because I'm an expert.
Because, yeah,
And we're best friends. Homies,
home bros,
bro.
men in black.
Okay, let's move along. Yeah, but I think that's the thing is, as a Christian, it's not our place to particularly make that call and pass a judgment. Look, I think especially in this case, we're overstepping a line just having this conversation to some degree because it's absolutely none of our business.
Sure.
It's none of your business. It's none of my business. They are public figures, and so we're absolutely allowed to talk about them, and that's why we are. And we're talking about public affairs, things that have been streamed over the whole planet.
Yeah.
And so it's not like we're doing anything inherently wrong by having this conversation, but when it really comes down to the wire, it's none of our business. And I think that's important to remember all the time as we converse about this thing. It's none of our business. But I think it's an interesting thing to think about how this relationship between an actor and people, and how the actor's duty on the screen is to convince people that he is somebody else. And often we react to actors as the characters they play. So we treat them as if they're the characters they play instead of treating them as Will Smith. We'll treat him as Richard, which Chris Rock did. I don't know the role, by the way. I have no idea what movie it was for. But Chris Rock, when Will Smith was walking up to him, he called him Richard, which is apparently the name of the character
in the movie.
that Will Smith is winning an Oscar for. So, like, sometimes we tend to do that. Now, obviously, Chris Rock was doing it in the moment as part of the joke, but the populace, the general populace, does that unwittingly.
Yeah.
They're not consciously thinking about it. They project characteristics onto Will Smith that they assume are Will Smith, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's a character that he's playing.
Yeah.
And it gets very difficult as Christians to figure out when to draw those lines if we want to get really into it. But I think the safest thing, my opinion, you can give yours if you disagree. My opinion is the safest thing is just stay out of it as much as possible, and then it's not that difficult.
Yeah. No, I mean, if you don't care, then it's not, you know. No, that's not probably the right way to put it. I would say that, you know, the whole tagline of our merch,
Yeah.
you know, if I love them as I should, then, well, first of all, this whole situation would be tragic to me.
Yeah.
But also, I think I would respect them enough to say, well, I have no idea who these people are, really. I don't know what they are like in their personal lives. I have no idea what's happening in Will Smith's marriage. I have no idea what's happening in Chris Rock's life. There could be, and probably is the case, that Chris Rock didn't even write that joke, that he had writers writing the joke for him.
Sure.
But I don't know that, you know. So there's a lot of factors that I've got just no point of reference. If I want to make an objective statement about what happened, then I need to know these things.
Yeah.
But I don't know these things. And so how can I sit here in South Africa and say, Will Smith's having a bad time, huh? It's like, I can't say that.
Yeah, no, for sure. I absolutely agree. So yeah, I think that's a pretty safe option when it comes to actors in general. And the concept of us making judgments upon them and their lives. we ultimately need to remember that they are real people that we actually inherently don't know. When it really comes down to the why, we don't know. And it's a safe option for us to always approach it from that angle. Let's talk a moment about Chris Rock. I want to move this on because I want to get to the juicy bits of the conversation. So Chris Rock made the joke that got Will Smith fuming. And there's something to talk about there. So yes, we acknowledge we don't know where Will Smith is in his life. We have no idea what's going on, blah, blah, blah. What we do have, though, is we have a video of Chris Rock making a joke on a public stage that obviously offended Will Smith. Now, we can argue all day long whether it should have offended him or not, but that's irrelevant.
That's a different conversation.
It's not ours to have. Again, because we don't know Will Smith and where he is. But what we do know is Chris Rock made that joke, and that joke specifically triggered Will Smith. Now, the question is, how much responsibility does Chris Rock carry for the words he spoke that day?
That's an interesting question to have,
Indeed.
I think sometimes we misconstrued the idea of freedom of speech. Now, I know that in America, the freedom of speech laws are a little bit different than ours. They don't have a thing called hate speech. You can't, you can't be punished, or you can't go to jail or pay a fine. They can't enforce any law if you say something hateful.
Okay.
So I know, but the point is, we misconstrued this idea of freedom of speech with freedom of consequence. Now, this is not justifying what Will Smith has done, obviously, but it's ridiculous to say that your words don't have consequences.
Yeah,
that there's. Well, it's just a joke, bro. It's like, okay, well, let's think about this from a point of view that, like you say, they are human with emotions, with reactions. They do have bad days, and this could have been, and I'm not saying this is, but this could have been just a bad day for Will Smith. And it reached a boiling point, and that joke drove him over the edge.
Yeah.
Now, whether that's Chris Rock's fault is a difficult question to answer. I have no idea what his faith situation is.
Yeah.
Don't know what his faith situation is, and I'm careful not to hold him to the standard of Christians if he has not submitted to that standard. I would implore him to, because it's the best standard in my opinion.
Yeah.
But I would say I would definitely say he's not like free from consequence, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But again, that doesn't justify Will Smith slapping him.
Yeah, shot. But it's great that you sort of bring up the thing about standards, because I think that's somewhat where we want to go in this conversation anyway, is to say, okay, so this thing with Chris Rock and Will Smith happened. It is what it is. We actually have very little to say about that exact situation, but it does give us an opportunity to talk about Christian responsibility of what we say. And it brings an interesting factor into conversation about whether or not, for instance, such a thing as Christian stand-up comedy is a good idea. So I only know one example of a outwardly Christian comedian, and that's that John Crist guy who had some controversy surrounding his ministry and stuff not so long ago. So I don't really want to comment on that, but if you had to look at his ministry, for instance, I call it ministry, but his occupation as a Christian comic, comedian, it's a Christian comic, 2D drawings. Oh, I'm just kidding. But
What?
yeah, so as a Christian comedian, well, I think essentially it comes down to this. Where do we stand? Christianity and jokes. What?
Well,
Where?
John, I don't know about you, but I never make jokes. because it's wrong.
I mean, obviously, we are, JP and I, for those of you who don't know, are perfect in every way.
That's why.
That's why
we do this podcast for you guys.
so that you can learn from us. We're here to teach you the ways of
Perfection.
I mean, we are so far from it. Just somebody's going to take that out of context and they're going to post us on YouTube and we'll finally become famous.
Oh, do it, please. That would be awesome. That's
No, but I tell lots of jokes. So do you. We do it on the podcast all the time. But where does it put us in terms of knowing that there's a consequence to the words we speak? And in fact, there's a biblical precedent for that. The book of Proverbs, for instance, very often speaks about the power of our words. And
The book of James as well.
Book of James. And where does that put us in terms of Christianity and telling jokes? Now, the whole reason why I think this is a good opportunity to talk about it is we can look at the situation of Chris Rock and Will Smith. We can see the consequence of telling jokes. And obviously it's a consequence of a specific joke. So obviously we can very easily say, well, that joke went too far.
Yeah.
Although we don't really know that. We're not here to make that call.
Even that's a bit.
But as a Christian, if you were standing up there and that happened to you, you made that joke and Will Smith came up and slapped JP across the face. Where does that put you?
I would be the most famous man in the world right now.
I mean, you're not wrong.
I want to start off by just saying, I think God has placed humor in us. We've got a capacity for finding things funny, objectively finding things funny. Laughing is an involuntary response to, something unexpected happen or whatever. I don't want to define what comedy is here, but
no, but if I may for a moment, I'd try and remember your thought process because I'm going to talk for another 2 minutes.
Oh, okay.
No, but I just want to explain quickly. And I'm not a neuroscientist or whatever, neurologist. I don't know.
A neuroscientist.
I'm not in any of those things. That thing even determined what I said properly, JP.
I study neuro.
It's not complicated what I said, JP. So I read somewhere or saw a video somewhere where they spoke. It was Vsauce. Vsauce made a video on laughter. And I don't know what the video's title was or anything. Cool video if you can find it somewhere. I don't know what it's called though. But he speaks about laughter and why we laugh. I mean, we don't apparently as the human race, we don't really understand. It's one of the things that we kind of struggle to figure out. Properly scientifically be able to say this is exactly what causes laughter. But what they say is, as I'm telling you a story, for instance, your brain is predicting where that story is going to go. And so it starts it's almost ahead of its time, your brain, the whole time.
Yeah.
JP, your brain is ahead of its time. What a compliment.
Brilliant.
So anyway, so it makes these connections, and connections in the brain are effectively energy to some degree. And at some point, when the punchline of the joke comes, the punchline of the story, our brain assumed a different ending to the story. And all those connections become irrelevant. And your brain
Yes. Jabrain? Well, jabroni?
So, Noit. So your brain has to make these new connections all of a sudden and essentially have this new understanding of the story. But the energy that's released by those other connections that have I'm so sorry. The energy that gets released from those other connections having to sort of break apart or whatever, I don't know the correct terminologies in it, is what actually causes this involuntary action of laughter.
Yeah.
Which is quite interesting.
No, it's an
and
interesting
essentially
thought.
backing up your point here, ultimately, that says it's built into
Yeah.
us. Like, it's
Yeah.
involuntary, it's in our brains, and it happens.
Yeah, yeah. So I would say that I believe that there's a place in Christian life for jokes. It does bring joy. It does bring laughter. It does bring fellowship at the end of the day. I mean, if I just think about, we've got a group of people who stay behind after our church services.
Yeah.
Specifically the English service. I've got a very specific group of people in mind that they love telling jokes and they love talking and they love having coffee together after the service. And, I sometimes often stand with them and laugh with them and hear these jokes that these people are telling, and I do think that there's like it's a powerful thing.
Yeah.
So it's a powerful thing, and it's a powerful communication tool as well. Because it grabs your attention.
Yeah.
If you tell a joke, it grabs your attention. That's why pastors tell jokes, by the way. They do it bad sometimes, often.
So bad.
Cringy. But the reason for that is to grab the attention of the audience.
Yeah.
I know John MacArthur would probably disagree with me, but he tells jokes. Even he tells jokes.
Yeah.
But the point is, there's definitely a place in Christian life for jokes and for laughter, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Even like one of the Psalms says that God laughs at the planning or the scheming of his enemies, the people who plan against him. Now, obviously, that's a whole different conversation.
Different kind of laughter right over there.
Because if we say our laughter is involuntary,
Yeah.
it means we don't have control over it. Now, obviously, God is perfect. And he's got control over his laughter, I would assume. Like, that's a pretty safe assumption to be
One can
made.
only assume, yes.
No, I don't think, because also, okay, I'm not going to go into that conversation. Maybe that's a conversation for a different day. But
does God laugh? Anyway.
but so I do think that within the Christian parameter of the standard that we find in Scripture, we can have fun.
Yeah.
And enjoy life.
The Catholics disagree. That's what I was going to say.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
No, John.
Sorry, Catholics. We love you. But you are a bit serious sometimes. It's just a joke, bro.
But once we step outside of that, I think then we're running into a problem. And my mind is cast back to Romans 14.
Yeah.
That teaches the principle of don't be a stumbling block. And I think that just as much as jokes and laughter can be a great tool for fellowship and growing closer to one another, it is also potentially a stumbling block sometimes to people. And that's the waters that you need to tread when you start making jokes.
Absolutely. I think it's so important to have this conversation, and I think sometimes people listen to our podcasts and they're like, I know, I saw it as well. That's super cool. For those of you who are wondering, we're trying a new little thing here, which is transcribing everything we're saying into text. And when we were talking about your brain, then this thing decided that was jailbreak and jabroni. Jailbreak jabroni. That's super cool. So, yeah, some people probably listen to our podcast and they're like, oh, why are we even talking about this? Like, I've never thought about this before. Well, that's why we're here. We're here to think about it on your behalf so that you can think about it some more.
Think about it.
So, why I think it's so important, though, specifically what you're saying, that then there has to be space for it in a Christian worldview. And when I say there has to be, I mean that with some sort of urgency, not theologically, but societally. And what I mean by that is, if I understand correctly, some of the clever people in the world, psychologists or whatever, I don't know.
Jordan Peterson.
George,
Can we use his name in the title now?
George, we need them views. They suggest that the one thing all societies have in common in the world is laughter, for instance. Specifically, I think making fun of each other. And
I would never do
fun.
that.
yeah, sure. Exactly. You are a society all by yourself in that regard. Anyway.
This says a lot about society.
It does.
And yet we live in one.
We live in a society. Anyway, so I think it's important for us because every society has space for this. And if we were going to go so far as to say, the Bible says we must take every idle word captive or whatever, and then if we're going to go so far as to say that means telling jokes is bad. Because believe it or not, there are some people who think that.
Yeah, for
there
sure.
are some people who legitimately think Christians telling jokes is bad taste because we're using our mouths for idle things. But what you mentioned is so important because it's not necessarily idle. It's building community. It's building friendships and fellowship. In fact, in terms of team building psychology, they reckon that when people get to the point where they're comfortable enough making fun of each other, that's when their relationships are actually at their best to start building a good team. If people are uncomfortable with making fun with other people or of other people in their circle, they're still not connected. They're connected when they start poking fun at each other. That's what some team building analysts or whatever would say.
Yeah.
I've read this somewhere along the line. By the way, we have great sources here in But I Don't Know podcast.
Why are you showing your mug?
But I don't know. We use great sources like obscure articles I may or may not have read some point on the internet.
This is not an intellectual conversation. It never was.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that seriously.
Yeah,
This is just a conversation.
But I think it's an interesting thing to think about, though,
for sure.
and for us as Christians to consider that there is actually an edifying type of joke. There's an edifying type of poking fun at each other and still be responsible. The difficulty is, where do we draw that line? Because we don't always know. Like Chris Rock didn't know that he didn't expect Will Smith to respond that way. 100%.
For sure.
Like Chris Rock thought he was making a legitimately acceptable joke, especially on the heels of the dude who hosted last
Ricky
year.
Gervais.
Yeah. Chris Rock was like, this is tame,
This
guys.
is very tame.
And then he got slapped in the face. So that is a bit of a challenge as Christians, but ultimately that's life, isn't it? I mean, I think we often build barriers for ourselves based on bad circumstances, and then we never tread there again, but we don't realize that we just didn't read the circumstance well. So it's like, for instance, now the Oscars organizers standing up and saying, we're never going to tell jokes again.
Yeah.
We tend to do that in our own lives, in our personal lives. We make a joke, it offends somebody, so then we just stop. We stop having fun. We stop making jokes because we're Christians. We need to be responsible. But we're actually making fake boundaries based on our weakest moments of discernment. Chris Rock discerned badly whether that joke was going to fly or not. Now, whether that was by misinformation or by just bad judgment is irrelevant. He discerned badly.
Sure.
He made a bad choice. Told the joke and it didn't fly.
And it happens.
It happens. Now, if Chris Rock stopped telling jokes forever because he told a joke that got him slapped, that would be a stupid decision. Because he's been telling jokes for a long time and that hasn't happened.
He's told
over
way
and over.
worse jokes.
Way
in my
worse jokes, man. And so the same thing is true for us. Sometimes we're going to overstep those boundaries and we need to be wise and learn from that, I think. And then discern better.
Yeah.
We need to discern when it's appropriate
Yeah.
to tell such jokes. And it's a social skill, I think, to some degree. And some people are better at it than others.
Like me. No, I'm joking.
Just a joke.
Just a joke,
Just
bro.
a joke, bro.
So, yeah, I don't know if you have anything else you want to add to that in particular.
Well, I think we as Christians, we are so. Or let me put it this way: we forget to have grace with one another in instances like this. You know, we forget to communicate openly with one another. It's like, John, you and I rib each other all the time. You know, if like. Am I wrong or am I right?
No, you are so right.
I
man.
am correct.
For once in your life.
Yes. But if it crosses the line, we sometimes forget to tell each other this. Now, I'm bringing this up because I'm using this as an example. And I don't think this has happened, but if I make a joke that's too personal, or if you make a joke that's too personal for me, you know, what we tend to do is we tend to not speak about it.
Yeah.
We tend to go, oh, you laugh, and then behind it, and it builds up a sort of like resentment.
Yeah.
Towards this person, and this person thought, well, he was just making an innocent joke, you know. And there's you immediately attribute motive, and you're like, yes, he told
100%.
this joke because this is what he thinks, and meanwhile, it may not be the case.
Yeah.
And in that, we forget to have grace with one another. We forget to communicate with one another, and we forget to forgive one another.
Yeah.
You know, and if something like that happens and I tell a joke that offends someone, I need to, if they tell me, and if I know this, I need to, you know, have the whatever to apologize and ask for forgiveness and say, listen, I'm really, like, this is not what I meant. I understand if it offended you, and I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
You know, I apologize for it, and I won't make that joke again.
Yeah,
like I'll continue joking. It's like you said, we don't stop like having fun.
Yeah.
We don't stop laughing because laughter is valuable.
Yeah.
But we start setting up real boundaries then. We say, okay, with this person, this is a boundary.
Yeah.
Because once I cross that boundary, it becomes a stumbling block to that person.
I hear you, yeah. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I think when it comes down to it, we should be giving each other grace to make the mistake and giving each other grace for the apology, in a sense. So it's like, it shouldn't be that difficult for Christians to make mistakes.
Yeah.
It's a strange thing. Like, the gospel is literally about how God has forgiven us our worst sins.
Yeah.
And cast them as far as the east is from the west. And yet sometimes we struggle just to forgive our brothers and sisters on little matters of choice of words, for instance. And I think that grace goes both ways. You know, it's like, it should be that I have enough grace to freely apologize and to feel confident that even though I've made this mistake, I have an opportunity, if that makes sense. I've got a free opportunity to apologize and to make right. Because sometimes we don't feel that even.
Yeah.
You know? So okay, so the other guy is now offended. It should be easy for me to apologize.
Yeah.
In the sense of, I should feel confident approaching my brother and sister and saying, hey man, I realized that joke was in bad taste. I just wanted to apologize. I should be confident that the person's going to reciprocate that to some degree.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we hold back the apology because we're scared the apology brings more offense and raises other questions and stuff. And I think that's partially why you and I dig at each other so often, is there's often times, and I'm sure you can think of it as well, where we'll kind of start down a line of jokes and we'll kind of stop ourselves and be like, yes, I'm sorry, I'm going to stop that one. Like, I know if I carry on down here, I'm going to get a bit deep. And I think that between you and I, we've got that little bit of grace to be like, oof, I realize that I've maybe started pietering where I shouldn't. And I'm going to back off now.
Yeah.
And then we've got the confidence that if I say that to you, you're going to be like, okay, I see the effort you've made to stop. We move on, instead of holding it against one another and being like, oh, you overstepped the boundary. I'm done now. I'm offended and I'm walking away.
Yeah, I'm walking towards you, slapping you in the face.
Yeah. So yeah, I think there's this really, really big element of grace that needs to come into the equation at the end of the day.
Yeah. I think grace. Yeah. The ramifications. So I'm just thinking. I want to clarify this is saying that if we speak about apologizing to a brother or a sister that a joke may have gone a little bit too far, that's different from saying you should apologize for jokes. I don't think that's what we mean by saying that. And I'm not speaking for you, I'm speaking for myself. But what I'm saying is, there's this movement in the world, and it's largely connected with cancel culture.
Yeah.
Where you've made this joke about a group of people. You need to apologize to the world for that joke, because that joke is what you've meant, and it comes out of a place of motive.
Yeah.
They're saying this is what you've meant by telling this joke, and therefore you must apologize.
Yeah.
Once you apologize, now you've admitted, or by admission, you're saying, okay, you are correct. This is what I meant. And that's not what we are speaking about.
Yeah.
We are specifically speaking about, basically, not excusing, but basically apologizing for our own flawed discernment in that situation.
100%.
Which is what we mean by apologizing for a joke that we've made.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's an important distinction, man. There's another guy that we kind of follow a little bit. I follow him a little bit more than you do. I think that Objective Believer, S.J. Newell is his name. And
I watched a few of his videos. Cool videos.
Yeah, and he sometimes hammers down on this concept that the intent of what has been said should always be determined by the one who said it, and never by the one who heard it.
Absolutely.
And I think there's a lot of value in that, and that's what this sort of cancel culture movement and social justice movement is getting wrong to a large degree, because they're enforcing their own interpretation onto somebody's words and enforcing them to apologize based on their interpretation, instead of granting the person the freedom to interpret their own words. Now, I realize that the challenge with that is sometimes people will twist their own interpretation of their own words to paint themselves in a better light.
Sure.
I get that that happens. But that's specifically in Christianity, at least, when we're dealing with Christian brothers and sisters, where we should have trust for one another and that grace. It's that I'm going to let you give me the interpretation of what you meant, and I'm going to trust that you tell me the truth. Because if you do tell me the truth and it's still bad, I'm going to have grace on you, towards you. I'm going to grace on you, bro. Sounds like such a new age preacher type of thing to say. Oh, just grace on him. Just grace on him so bad. I just imagine.
I was going to say a name, but I'm not going to do that.
I just imagine a pastor in jeans and flannel shirt saying that.
Running around the stage with a microphone like this. Not specifically aimed at anyone specific.
No one in particular. But yeah, just so it's that thing of I should have freedom, and I think that's exactly where I was trying to go with that conversation, is like I should have freedom to interpret my words in front of you and say what I meant is this, because I know that you're going to trust me enough, first of all, that I'm making right, and secondly, I'm going to tell you the truth because I know even if the truth is bad, you're going to forgive me because we're Christian brothers and sisters. So there should be this incredible grace and trust from a Christian brother to a Christian brother and sisters. Just got to put that out there. It's 2022. Anyway, it's like so many things went through my mind right
too,
now.
but I was like, I'm
So we
going
stopped.
to refrain myself from making these jokes right now.
Discernment. We
Yeah.
just practiced it in front of you, JP and I.
This is what we do.
Yeah, we demonstrated.
We demonstrate.
So anyway, I think that's we've covered mostly. I think what we need to talk about in this context. Like we've taken some value from the Chris Rock Will Smith debacle, and we've managed to give our viewers and listeners a bit of practical advice as to how to conduct themselves better in Christian relationships. And if you're not Christians, it works either way.
Yeah.
To be good people
Yeah.
in general. Being good people is always good, even if you're not a Christian.
Sure.
Yeah,
That's a very controversial statement you just made, John.
it is for sure. Now, I will say this, that being a good person isn't always enough, but it's always good.
Absolutely.
Whew. It's a nice statement. I'm going to quote myself. Yes. I'm going to quote myself saying
on your
that.
status
Yeah.
with your name, like You know that meme where Barack Obama gives himself the medal? It's you. Like
Yeah.
this is what you're doing.
Yes. Oh, I like it so much. So, cool. Do you have any closing thoughts before we bring this to a close? Before an hour, we're going to keep this one shorter than an hour.
Sure. I think the other aspect, and maybe this opens up a whole different conversation,
Then so be it.
and so be it. The other aspect of this conversation is that I don't think, even if someone tells a joke that makes you so offensive, that violence is a good response to it.
Oh,
You know?
absolutely.
And I know that there will be people like, well, what if it was your wife? I don't have a wife, bruh.
That's
But anyway, no, but
a good rebuttal.
no, but like my response will be, well, if you listen to our views on self-defense,
Yes, I was going to bring that up as well.
where we specifically speak about, where we do speak about justifiable violence in that episode, because we do speak about violence to some degree.
Episode 9, by the way. Mama, I just self-defense.
Well, check it out. But but yeah, I don't think violence is a justifiable response to a joke. Now
Yeah.
you can have a conversation with the guy, and I understand the feeling of. Well, I don't fully grasp it, but John, maybe you can give a little bit more, because you are a married man. If someone makes fun of your wife, who's sitting in the other room, right there.
Yeah, that's why I've got to watch my words carefully. No, I'm kidding. But I think, this is also a very complicated conversation, and we might have to at some point talk about marriage and our views on marriage in general.
That's going to be an interesting conversation.
It will for sure. But I think that there's definitely a point where I have to defend my wife.
Sure.
100%. But I think we even spoke a bit about this in that self-defense episode, that there's a point where me defending my wife is no longer primarily my responsibility. And what I mean by that is I need to trust that God is protecting her, and I need to trust that she is protecting herself. What I mean by that is that she is pursuing God, because ultimately that's the best protection for anyone, is for them to pursue God. So before you click off, because I've just made these bold statements, what I mean by that is I'm not saying that I'll ever stop defending my wife, but what I am saying is that I will not defend my wife at all costs, because she has been bought with the highest price, the blood of Christ, and she doesn't belong to me. She belongs to God. And so it's not an at all costs situation. It's at I will defend my wife within the same boundaries as we kind of discussed in that episode. So I'm not going to get into the details of that.
Well, I mean, I just I want to throw this thought in. Like defending your wife doesn't always mean violence.
100%.
Like physical violence.
Very seldom will it.
Yeah.
If I know for a fact that my wife is bought by the blood of Christ.
Sure.
Very seldom will the defense of my wife be violence. I think more often one might have to resort to violence to defend one's children, perhaps, because there's a greater responsibility in terms of salvation and me bringing my children up in the ways of the Lord and ensuring, I say ensuring, but I'm doing inverted commas because I don't literally mean ensuring, but there's more responsibility for me to ensure the salvation of my children than the salvation of my wife. But I don't really mean it as in more. I mean it as in my wife and I work together to ensure their salvation.
Yeah.
And ensure, I'm sure you guys understand what I'm saying when I say that. I'm not saying I can save them. I'm not saying anything I can do is going to save them, but I lead them.
Yeah.
And I bring them to the foot of the cross as best as I can. And there is absolutely, I can imagine a time where my children are not quite there and where I might have to defend them. And then the choice is potentially between an unsaved man who I do not know and my child who I can, with some sort of confidence, determine whether they are saved or not. I mean, that's also another conversation for another day.
Good conversation.
But I think you guys are getting where I'm coming from here. I think there's a time, maybe, somewhere, in some universe, I'm kidding, in some circumstance, where violence is a necessary defense.
Sure.
Very seldom, though. Very, very seldom.
Last
but again,
resort. Absolute last
go
resort.
listen to our self-defense episode. But what it comes down to here is I don't think that Will Smith's choice to slap Chris Rock was a reasonable choice. Granted, he might not have been in a normal frame of mind, so I give him grace for it. I'm
Sure.
like, it's fine, bro. But we shouldn't react that way.
Yeah. No.
There's no way. Like, I will defend my wife physically if she is physically endangered.
Yeah. That's the thing. You respond in kind to some degree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And physically definitely doesn't mean murder. I think that's the important distinction that was made in the previous episode that we spoke about this. It's not that I can't physically defend, but murder is where we draw a line at some point.
Yeah. Like the guy can live without his legs.
Yeah. I will defend my wife physically for sure, to a large extent if she's in physical danger.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Does it help?
It helps.
Great.
That makes sense.
And I agree with you that physical responses need to be reserved. I nearly said preserved. They need to be reserved.
Preserve your physical responses. Save it for later.
I think we need to reserve that for the absolute necessary moments.
Yeah.
When we are physically in danger. Anyway. Anything else? I don't think we need to cover anything else right now.
Yeah, no, not in terms of this topic.
Yeah, there's obviously a lot more we could talk about, but 53 minutes in.
Hey, we're shorter than last week.
Let's bring it to a close. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. We want to encourage you, whether you're a Christian or not, to be gracious to your brothers and sisters. Love people, hate sin. As our new merch says. Go get yourself a t-shirt, man.
Buy the merch.
We know you want to do it.
Buy the merch.
Listen to our previous episode if you want some more details on that. We spoke a bit more, especially at the end of the episode, we spoke about the formalities, how to get one, why to get one, etc. and so forth.
Look at it. It's so beautiful.
It's a great shirt.
Favorite shirt.
And jump over to our socials, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and we'll catch you over there.
And on Spotify. Go check us out on Spotify if you've got Spotify.
You can do that.
Yeah, I just thought about this. And give us a star rating. 5 stars.
Yo,
Nothing less.
5 stars, baby.
Yes. Do it. Do it. Do it now. Thank you so much for watching that very fascinating episode about that very fascinating topic. We would like to remind you that we've got other fascinating episodes and other fascinating topics on our fascinating website.
Fascinating indeed, JP. We're also on the following social media networks: Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube.
Wow, and we would love it if you would go there right now and comment on any one of them or all three of them if you please.
That would be great. You're amazing. Don't you ever forget that.